welcome back to Kitchen Treks. Today we're making one of my favorite flatbreads in the entire world called Roti Canai. It actually comes from Malaysia and it is really bad for you because you add clarified butter at every single step. But that's also what makes it delicious. The ingredients are super simple, but there's a special process to create all of the delicious puffy layers. So let's get started. So to start off, you're going to want to get a large bowl. For me, I'm going to be using a stand mixer with my dough hook attached. We're going to start off with our dry ingredients first. So pour in about 3.5 cups of flour, followed by 1.5 teaspoons of salt and 1 teaspoon of sugar. Now we're going to mix that up until it's well combined. And then you're gonna pour in your ghee, like a 1/4 cup of ghee. And if you don't have ghee, just go ahead and use some clarified butter. It's the same thing. Mine was a bit thick, so I had to microwave it, and then I was able to easily pour it and give it a mix again. And you want the dough to start clumping at this stage. Once you see clumps, it's time to add in 1 egg. Let that mix for about 10 seconds and then go ahead and add in 3/4 cup of whole milk, followed by 1/2 cup of water. As you can see, a lot of the dough is kind of stuck on the sides of the bowl, so go ahead and brush the flour down and start mixing again for around 9 minutes. You'll know when to turn off your stand mixer when the dough no longer sticks to the bowl or the dough hook and it's in like a complete homogeneous mixture. That's when you're ready to take it out, and now it's time to get some more clarified butter and rub it all over your hands because you want to make sure that the dough does not stick to your hands. And you're going to start kneading your dough for around 10 minutes until it's really soft and pliable. Once you're done kneading, your dough should look like this. And now it's time to get a plate, and you guessed it, some more butter, and you're gonna butter the plate. Make sure you cover every inch of the plate so that when you're done working with the dough and you place it in the plate to rest, it will have butter all around it. Now it's time to prepare your dough balls. So go ahead and flatten your dough and start cutting it into 4 pieces. So vertically and then horizontally. Easy enough. Then separate the 4 pieces and then cut them in half again and roll them into a ball, and at the end you should have 8 of these dough balls. Try to make them relatively the same size, but if they're not, that's totally fine. And now it's time to add more butter. So get a tablespoon or so of clarified butter and liberally coat your dough ball with it. Repeat that step and then cover all of the dough and place it in the fridge overnight, or you can let it rest on the counter for 6 hours, which is what I did. So after it's done resting, go ahead and liberally coat your work surface with butter as well. That way, none of the dough sticks to anything. It won't stick to your hand and it won't stick to your counter anymore. And you guessed it, add more butter to your hands because, like I said, lots and lots of butter in this recipe. Now we're gonna start to try to flatten this dough as much as possible. So one of the methods that people use is they slap it on the counter to try to get more air into the dough and to also try to thin it out. As you could see, I didn't look very professional when I did it because I'm a beginner at this recipe. I've never made it before. So I decided just to manually stretch it with my hands. So I went to every side and pulled on the dough and tried to get as much air trapped underneath it as possible and tried to make it as paper thin as I could. Once I got it as thin as possible, I started rolling one side of it up until it met the halfway point and repeated that step on the other side, like so. Then I started twirling the dough into a cinnamon roll. And this part was really easy. Once I was done with that, I took the end piece and I tucked it into the middle to make sure that it was a continuous roll and a continuous circle. But that was method 1, and there are actually numerous ways to make this flatbread, so I wanted to show you a secondary method as well, which requires folds. So you fold it twice over itself vertically, and then once horizontally, and then you go ahead and twirl it into a cinnamon roll again. And this method gives you the same types of flakiness and layers as the first method. But now it's time to cook your flatbread. So go ahead and flatten out the twirls again into around a 7 to 8 inch circle. You can also make these into square shapes as well if you would like. Just make it as flat as possible and then heat up some butter on a flat pan or griddle. Carefully place your flatbread in the middle on the buttered surface and just let it cook. Just let it cook and let it bubble up a bit. And you'll know when to flip it when it puffs up a bit, because that means that the other side has browned a bit. You should see it sizzle, you should see it bubble. Look at all this steam, it just looks so good. And then make sure to flip it. And I flipped mine a couple times until I reached the type of browning that I wanted, and I kept adding butter to it, to accelerate the browning. But yeah, this is pretty much how you cook it. It should only take around 3 or 4 minutes, but that depends on how hot your griddle or your pan is. Once it's done cooking, go ahead and put it back on your work surface and use a clapping motion to crisp it up and break it up a bit, because you want it to be super flaky, and this helps with that process. But that's it. This is the end result. You can add some sugar on top of it and eat it like a dessert or a snack, or you can have a veggie curry on the side to eat it with. But thanks for watching. See you next time.